Welcome back to the Mash Paddle YouTube channel. Today we're going to be brewing an all-grain American IPA. So today I'm brewing one of my favorite styles, an American IPA. This has been a long favorite style of mine to drink, but funnily enough I haven't actually really brewed too many American IPAs in my time, so I'm kind of looking forward to see how I go at making this one. The grain bill for this beer, if you scroll down to the description you'll see it as it is, but it is 92% pale malt, 5% of crystal malt and 3% of amber malt. The crystal and the amber malt will give just a little bit of sweetness and a little bit of colour to give it that amber golden colour. Hops wise, we're going to be using Centennial at the start and finishing off with Mosaic and Citra, so it'll have that nice citrus stone fruit kind of a flavour. But I'm using enough hops in there to give it an IBU of around 60, so there'll be a nice amount of bitterness to balance out the malt and sweetness of the malt as well. Currently in the kettle I've got about 20.6 litres of water, which I'll get to mash temperature. Mashing today is going to be at 67 degrees, and I'm also going to be adding in some salts to the water to get the pH levels kind of where it needs to be. I'm looking at adding 2 grams of gypsum, 2 grams of epsom salts and 2 grams of calcium chloride. We're going to be mashing for 60 minutes. We're going to do a sparge with this one today. I'm also going to experiment around a little bit. My brew house efficiency with the old Brewzilla hasn't been great with the last couple of beers that I've done in here, the Fest beer and the Saison. Saison wasn't too bad, but the Fest beer was completely out of where it needed to be. So I'm going to play around a little bit with the mash, do a bit more stirring and mashing throughout the course of the 60 minutes just to see if that's going to help the efficiency, get all the sugars and all the fun stuff out of the grain. This is now nearly ready to go, so let's pour in some grain and let's get mashing in. So as I mentioned at the top there, adding in our salts, so the gypsum, the calcium chloride and the epsom salts. Give that a mix in. So if you might remember from a few videos ago, I sort of mentioned that I started to take maybe the water profile a little bit more seriously when brewing, especially when I realised that my water here is quite high in pH. And I have got to admit that the last couple of brews that I've done where I've sort of looked at the water profile a bit better, they have turned out surprisingly a lot better themselves. So much nicer actually. So there is something to be said about water profile. If it's something that you are interested in, and definitely do some research online in regards to the water profile, and you can go and look at your, I think, local government websites or water supply for your area to find out what your water pH levels are, and then you can adjust accordingly. Most recipes that you will see will give you an idea of what the pH level should be and what you can do to get it to that level that you need. All right, let's add some grain. And let's see if I can spill it everywhere. A lot of grain. So I'm going to mash this in, get all the grain in under the water line, give it a good stir. As I said, we're going to mash this for 60 minutes at 67. I'm not going to ramp up at the end of the mash for this one, just to see if it makes sort of what sort of difference it does make in terms of that brew house efficiency, which I said at the top I'm trying to improve. and try and get to a consistency. All going to plan with this beer and the amount of grain that I've added. It is going to be a pretty big beer. It'll also come in at around 7%, or maybe just a bit over 7%. I need to look at the Brewfather app and the recipe again. So that's got him all mashed in a little bit better there. It does feel quite heavy. Alright, that'll do. So I'm not going to be using the top screen today like I have done in the past. But I am still going to recirculate the wort, so put the little arm and tubing in. Turn the pump on. I'm also going to control the amount of flow with the little switch here. I'm just going to close there sort of like half off, so it's sort of a little bit slower than we've done in the past. What I'm going to do is set a timer for 60 minutes, but I'm going to come back probably 2 or 3 times just to give it a good mash and stir through, and we'll see how we go. So we're coming into the mash. You can see there, this is like a nice golden color has come through for this one, which I'm pretty stoked with. So when the timer goes off, we'll lift up the grain basket and we'll do a sparge. I'm sparging with about just under 8 litres of water for the sparge for this one. And then we'll kick off the boil and our hop additions. Now the mash is done and we've sparged through, pretty close to hitting the pre-boil volume mark, which was meant to be about 23.8 litres. I got to just on 23 litres for our boil. Pre-boil gravity was better than expected. Instead of being 1.053, finished up being 1.064. So that means our beer at the moment, instead of being about a 7% IPA, we're now hitting an 8%, which is sort of heading towards double IPA territory, which I'm not opposed to. Hop schedule, so as I said, we're going to have 3 hops going into this beer. We've got Centennial, which I've got here, and that's going to kick things off in the boil at the 60-minute mark, and I'm going to put in 30 grams of Centennial. There'll be 20 grams of Mosaic go in at the 20-minute mark, and then 20 grams of Citra to go in at the 10-minute mark. Then that'll be it for the hops. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it is going to bring that IBU to around about 60-65, which I think is still going to give it enough bitterness, and these are pretty flavoursome hops as they are. Using Mosaic and Citra late in the boil will give that nice citrus flavour to it, and Centennial will give it a nice little bit of bitterness on the back end. So the boil break, our hot break has just started to form here, so I'm going to tip these in and set our timer for 60 minutes. In goes the Mosaic, which we ended up doing 25 grams because that's what was left in the packet. 50 minutes is down in our boil, and we've got the last hop addition, which is Citra, and I've also got a Whirlfloc tablet to add in there as well. Pop him in. So finished up, I had about 23 grams of Citra left, so I just thought I'll just chuck it all in. Why not? So at the end of this, we'll then start chilling our wort down for the fermenter. So the hop schedule in the end was 30 grams of Centennial, 25 of Mosaic, 23 of Citra, 20 is probably going to be fine, or we can bump it up to 25 if you want to recreate this recipe at home. Again, the recipe will be down in the description below. So we've got a few more minutes, we'll start getting prepped and ready to chill our wort. So now we're just pitching our yeast. Now that we've got the wort down to about 20 degrees, we've got it down to. So the yeast again that I'm using is US West Coast M44 from Mangrove Jacks, and we're going to let this ferment now for 14 days. Thank you very much for watching. Like, subscribe, and check out our tasting video soon.